So, Remain supporter Theresa May has in the past 24 hours confirmed that Britain is going for a hard Brexit, destroying decades of neoliberal free market theory. And who was one of the catalysts for this extraordinary personal U-turn by the UK Prime Minister? Gerry Gunster, credited with helping win over the British people to the LeaveEU campaign. He was more recently photographed with US President-elect Trump outside his gold-plated front door. And he joins me now via Skype from Maryland in the USA. Gerry, thanks so much for joining us. So how upbeat should we be about the prospect of a US-UK trade deal?
I think the United Kingdom should be very upbeat. The stories and the comments that are coming out from the Senate leadership, from Congress, and from President-elect Trump are pretty telling that the United Kingdom is going to be at the front of the queue when it comes to trade negotiations. President-elect Trump was a supporter of Brexit. He said that he, quote unquote, it's going to be a great thing. And like any trade negotiations between two countries, it takes two willing partners. And right now, there are two willing partners that are interested in expediting a trade deal. And that's the United Kingdom and the president-elect and his team that are coming in.
Quick historical sidebar now. Why do you think President Obama and his administration didn't seem to have a clue about what the British, let alone the American people, wanted, even though they were obviously so hurt by the forces of globalization?
Well, it's tough to say. I mean, I can't get inside the head of President Obama or his team. But as we move forward here, I think that President-elect Trump and his transition team have looked at the mistakes and the errors, if you will, that President Obama has had with the United Kingdom. And they're anxious to make it a much better relationship, similar to what President Reagan had with Margaret Thatcher decades ago. And I think this is very possible with this president, President-elect Trump. As you look at his family, for example, his mother is from Scotland, and he has great admiration for Great Britain and the United Kingdom. And I don't think there's any question about it. That absolutely helps. And as you know, President-elect Trump has forged some great relationships with a number of people in the United Kingdom, obviously one of them being Nigel Farage. And he has spoken to Nigel Farage about this and has said that he has every intention of making sure that there is an expedited trade relationship between our two cousins.
Trump says he's famously pro-US worker. Slightly ironically, maybe, his team used a British IT firm for data processing for the strategy behind his victory, Cambridge Analytica. Tell me about how you work on data when it comes to securing victories on whether it be referendums or, indeed, elections.
Well, there's now a science behind all of this. It's very easy in the world that we live in right now to micro-target and what they call behavioral target individuals so that you can feed them messages that resonate with them and get right down to specifics about who this individual is. For example, if you look at the LeaveEU campaign, we were able to make sure that a specific message was fed to the fishermen or the folks in the Midlands or the South or parts of London, knowing that there were certain messages that would persuade these people and give them the right content for them to understand that they should vote to leave.
It's no secret the big multinational corporations were against Brexit, were against Donald Trump. You're really saying that you and your team can compete with multi-billion-dollar, $500 billion in the case of, say, Google, analytics when it comes to these sorts of elections?
Well, I think we proved it. So, you know, there's a fact that we have been able to prove that we can use data as well as anybody to behavioral target and micro-target people. Now, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of vendors on the back end that are helping us slice and dice this data. And we do, in fact, use these big data companies like Google and Yahoo and these other folks to make sure that that our message is being sent out through the right systems and that we're targeting these folks appropriately.
Not so successful at combating the lies and perceptions of, say, mainstream media here, BBC, for instance, famously, or over there, what Trump
Yeah.
calls CNN's fake news, let alone BuzzFeed?
Social media, digital media, mobile technology, the way, for example, that President-elect Trump is handling his communication, they're looking to bypass the mainstream media and go directly to the people.
So you don't think there'll be any particular need for broadcast regulation, monopoly broadcast regulation, or that kind of thing to curb what many see as a sort of very unified media perspective over there in the United States, let alone what's happening in Britain? You could just bypass it all.
Well, there is the White House correspondence, and those correspondents do have a responsibility and a job to cover the President of the United States, and they will. They will travel with him. They've maintained and gotten to those positions in life because they are good journalists. And I don't think there's any doubt that the White House correspondents are going to continue to play an important role in communicating what the president is doing. But again, the way that he's handling himself right now and the way that his team is handling themselves, they're not going to wait to have a press conference on the activities that they undertake in the White House. They're just going to go right to the people.
Trump obviously supports your line on Brexit. He said that the EU is a kind of vehicle for Germany. Do you yourself foresee the breakup of the European Union as we go through 2017?
There's clearly some kind of movement going on right now, and it started in the United Kingdom. And I think the people spoke. 17.5 million people said that they are tired of having their laws come out of Brussels, that they would like their sovereignty back, and that Nigel Farage would say they wanted their country back. And I don't think there's anything wrong with people having that national identity and wanting to be a part of their country. And if that means that their laws are made in that country that affect themselves and their family and their children, then I certainly can understand it. Whether or not this is the beginning of the end of the European Union, I think people like Nigel Farage and others believe that that is in fact the case. And time obviously is going to tell.
UKIP's financier Aaron Banks, in his very recent book, Name Checks You, of course, it's very clear, though, that it's a by any means necessary strategy. No matter how cosmopolitan you guys seem to be, you say we can use immigration, that Nigel Farage can't be as provocative, but we can keep immigration at the top of the agenda. Any dangers in that kind of strategy? You obviously win, but what do you polarize within societies? I mean, some might compare it to populist politicians like Mussolini or Hitler, of course.
Well, look, I have told the folks at LeaveEU, and I've told many reporters this, numbers do not lie. And all of the opinion research that we did, both the qualitative and the quantitative research, said that the number one issue in the United Kingdom at the time when LeaveEU was being voted on was border control. And that is something that, frankly, you just couldn't ignore. It was there. It doesn't mean that you're a xenophobe. It doesn't mean that you're a racist. It just means that one of the larger issues that is impacting the United Kingdom is border control. Now, the other issues were right up there. Number two was sovereignty, which is obviously the ability to make your own laws in your own country and not have them dictated from folks in Brussels. And the third one was, frankly, just pure finances. And I saw this in the UK, and I see it here in the United States. People want to have the ability to control their own budgets.
And do you think, finally, that the big institutions, whether they're in Davos or, say, Goldman Sachs, which releases results today, understand these issues clearly? Or, in fact, as has so often been said about Donald Trump, that he isn't draining the swamp? These people are enmeshed in this administration, just as they're enmeshed here in a Brexiteer Theresa May administration.
I don't know. I do, though, have to believe that a clear signal and a clear message has been sent to those folks that there is change that has occurred. You simply cannot ignore what happened in the United Kingdom. And I tell people all the time, 17.5 million people did not make a mistake. And you cannot ignore what happened in the United States. These are two events, political seismic events, that occurred within 6 months of each other that you frankly cannot ignore.
Gerry Gunster, thank you.
You're welcome.